Well, with the news that President Trump and the Prime Minister are speaking tonight, action against Syria may well be coming, and it seems that the decision, whatever it is, will not be put to Parliament. There's little doubt now that Jeremy Corbyn would vote against. He said today, more bombing, more killing, more war will not save life. It'll just take more lives and spawn the war elsewhere. So, should Parliament have its say? Here in the studio is Catherine West, Labour MP and former Shadow Foreign Minister, and the Conservative MP, Johnny Mercer. Good evening to both of you. It looks as if you won't have a vote if there's going to be action. You're just going to have to wear that.
Well, Kirsty, I don't see why we can't be recalled on Saturday or Sunday. I could easily cancel engagements, and I think most MPs are back now because Parliament is sitting on Monday. So we should be in the House of Commons debating this crucial issue on Saturday or Sunday. So I'm just waiting for the Speaker to email me overnight so that I can be in Parliament Saturday and we can have a discussion about this most important topic.
Well, Johnny Mercer, I mean, the longest-serving Conservative MP, Ken Clarke, was perfectly clear today that actually there should be a vote in Parliament because, in fact, the Cabinet has got to be accountable to Parliament, not because, and if it's inconvenient, too bad. You have to have that vote.
I don't think it's a question of convenience. This argument that you must go through Parliament to conduct a self-defence or military action is just intellectually bankrupt. If you look at the decisions, how these are made, and the intelligence that goes into these decision-making processes, they will never come into the public domain, and they never should, because they will burn service. No, let me finish, Kirsty. They will go to the intelligence services will produce things that could never go into the public domain. Okay, so MPs are always going to be debating things with half of the information, so they could never come up with the right answer based on that. The Prime Minister and the National Security Council, we elect them, and they look at the information, and they make their decision based on that. And that's how a democracy works.
Kirsty, Chilcot could not have been clearer about the three conditions. Number one, that the intelligence must be robust, which of course in Iraq it wasn't. Number two, that there must be a plan, which there's no plan. And number three, that you must try and bring the public with you. And that bringing the public with you surely means debating in Parliament and having some transparency about the possible escalation of this situation.
So even someone like, even Emmanuel Macron saying that he's absolutely sure that at least chlorine was used. Do you believe him? You disbelieve him?
I have no doubt that terrible crimes have been committed and that Assad needs to come before the International Criminal Court.
So at what point, though, under what circumstances, would you actually back military action then against Assad?
Well, I think we need to see the evidence, and that needs to be put forward to members of Parliament so that we can ask the Prime Minister
Johnny Mercer is here saying
questions.
that the security forces know things that they couldn't possibly share with parliamentarians.
No, but I think what the Cabinet can do is to give us a steer on some of the information which they had today for their decision. I don't disagree with the fact
that the Prime Minister has a duty, when this country is engaged in military operations, to come forward, to advocate and to bring the country with her. I don't dispute that for a minute. But the fact that you can lay everything out that contributes to your decision-making cycle at the risk of making this country less safe because it will burn assets that we can never use again is intellectually bankrupt and makes us less safe. But I accept that ministers and the Prime Minister has to come out and advocate.
Well, but right now, what we don't have, and there may be evidence after the phone call tonight, but you must be really concerned that we do not seem to have a strategy. There is no end point. There's no actual agreement about what's happening here. Is it, Assad, we now agree, is going to be left in place? Is it, is it because you think the opposition is too toxic to actually back the opposition now, or is it busted flush?
Kirsty, you're not going to get a result. Whatever the West does in this, you're not going to shift the dial on the civil war in Syria. But that's not what we're trying to do. As Mark has just pointed out there, it's a signal about chemical weapons, and it's really important we do that.
12 months ago, Mr Trump did do a strike. I want to know what the government's assessment of the efficacy of that strike was, because here we are a year later being asked to do the same thing. I want to know how can we get beyond this? 8 years on and people are still suffering. We need peace, we need to get round the table, and we need to talk and talk and talk and not do more dropping of bombs which will kill more people.
But isn't there a problem with the Labour Party that it completely always eventually returns to Iraq? And you cannot base, Jeremy Corbyn cannot base his foreign policy on the hangover from Iraq.
Could I just say, Kirsty, at least with Iraq we had a rational partner. I mean, if Mr Johnson, our Foreign Secretary, was going to pick up the phone to his opposite number in the US, who was appointed today, I mean, what do we know about this man who was appointed today? It's just chaotic.
Well, let's not talk about the man who was appointed. Let's just very quickly go back to the question of the President of the United States and what David Frum said. And do you trust someone like the President of the United States to have a strategy to do the long-term plan for Syria and actually avoid the possibility of escalation with the Russians?
Donald Trump is the president at the moment. He is the post holder in that job. But I am absolutely confident that there is a security structure around him in people like Jim Mattis, who absolutely are coordinating. It's the Department of Defense. I know what you're saying. You look at Donald Trump, you look at his tweets, and you think this is quite a scary situation. But that enhances Britain's role. Britain needs to get in there as part of this alliance to temper some of that, but at the same time to resiliently say we are not going to tolerate the use of chemical weapons.
Thank you both very much indeed.